Right, now we've looked at snow-capped mountains such as at Mount Cook, and we'll be looking at overcast scenes such as Glencoe in Scotland. But here we've got something completely different, and this is hot, sunny, desert type rocks. In this case, this is Delicate Arch in the Arches National Park in Utah. Now, what I've done is to draw it in with an orange felt tip pen. I've painted a very broad angular sky which contrasts nicely with the angle of the arches. I've used these three photographs because you can see they're taken at different times of the day, and what I want to do is certainly get this nice light area of the sunlight catching the arch from this side, and you can see here we've got the shadow. Now, in the distance, I've painted these mountains exactly the same way that I did the Mount Cook mountains. Now what I'm going to do is to just block in some of these darker areas here, but I'm not going to put any detail at all in these rocks. So by mixing the raw umber and then bringing in some of the yellow ochre and certainly warming it up with a little bit of that permanent rose, yeah, that's nice now. And I'll drag that down roughly around the outline, making sure that the strata, which generally goes in this sort of direction, those brush strokes will really help you if you follow them. If we have a look at the photographs, particularly this one and that one, you can see that you've got the light shining on top of those rocks, but down here against this part of the arch is a very dark shadow area in this corner, and we're going to emphasize that because that's going to be really helping to sort of make the arch stand out. So let's have a look at the foreground. Oh yeah, that's a nice color. Now you can see, for example, how I've mixed that one. It's a lot of yellow ochre, a little bit of permanent rose, touch of the raw umber to just tone it down slightly, and just lifted with a little bit of white. Right, now you can see we've pretty well got the whole scene blocked in apart from the arch. The reason I've just brought you back into it now is that you can see that although I've had to paint this area and this area here separately, I wanted to make sure that the lines of the rock roughly flowed through in a consistent level. Just let's have a look at the colour we're going to use for the arch. It's very similar to this colour, but perhaps a little bit lighter. I'm making sure before the paint dries as well that where I am dragging this around, that I'm dragging it across, because that is a very definite structure of the rocks. And what I'm just doing now, just to define some of the places where the large fissures are actually showing. We've got that vertical slash like that. We've got the base of the rock like that. Now what I'm going to start doing is adding a minimal bit of detail in the background. I'm just using the number 2 filbert, and you can see I'm just lightly streaking in lights and darks. I want that to be reasonably light at that point because that's going to be dark, and that's why I'm leaving that reasonably light there. That's going to be much darker when it comes down to it. Let's just get a few little warm rocks here and there on the hillside. Right, we're going to start getting some general highlights and darks and shadows in the arch itself. You can see I've started off with the yellow ochre and the white and a little bit of the red. That's fine against the darker background rock. No problem at all. That's great. Okay, I've just about finished defining where the lighter areas are. That's by no means finished as a detail. Okay, we're now going to go into the darker areas down this side and this side of the arch and this underside of the arch, and here I'm going to be concentrating on the raw umber, a little bit of that yellow ochre added to give a bit of variety, and to keep, don't forget, it's very warm sandstone, so we still want some of that red in to give a subtle warmth to the whole proceedings. So I'm going to do exactly the same now as I've done here. You can see right away as I'm painting that in, this part of the leg of the arch has all but disappeared against the background. So it's something you need to be aware of constantly as an artist and to be able to adjust. Right, now we've nearly finished blocking in the shadow side. To give this sort of round effect of the rock, the three-dimensional effect, both with the white and the brown, is, do you see the way I'm using this sort of flattened sort of C? See, you're going round like that sort of stroke. Yeah, I've got some neat glazing material in. Don't be afraid to use that. Now that's better. That's just starting to take some of the harshness off some of the gradations from light to medium to dark. What I've done here is to add in some highlights. That's not quite white paint, that's white with mostly a little bit of raw sienna, a tiny touch of permanent rose. I'm just almost getting that off the brush, but you can see it helps to define the base of the arch against the distant ravine. The dark here I'm going to darken slightly, and the light here I'm going to lighten slightly, and then taking the excess paint off on the brush, I'm just going to pull that away, working our way away from the rock like that. And then we can go back in again with some darker paint just to redefine the edge like that. Perhaps a little bit darker. I'm just going to bring in a little bit of ultramarine blue into that raw umber. In fact, I might even bring in, there we are, I'm bringing in a touch of neat ultramarine blue like that, and that'll just help to complete the illusion of the light against dark. Oh, and we've got that little crevice, so let's have a little bit of fun. Let's create ourselves a little area where we've got the dark, but we're now suddenly magically creating, just by putting the light area next to the shadow, we've created that lovely subtle effect of the little crevice like that. The only other thing I'm going to do is to put in a little figure, a little hint of a figure here. There's a little proverbial carrot. You can have a look more about this in our figures DVD. A little hint of the shadow, which also tells you that the rocks are, or the floor is painting upwards. But we'll put our little friend in there. And then finally, I'm going to just put a shadow in, which is going to be ultramarine blue and permanent rose, a little bit of yellow ochre. I'm just going to put it round in an arch here, because you've got the dark arch against what now appears to be the light crevice below the archway itself, whereas right next to it, that then becomes the dark against light. Again, you'll see a lot of that situation arising in painting if you allow it to. What you're going to get, even though it's in shadow, very often what you're going to get is the reflected light that bounces off this light area of rock here and throws the light into that shadow area there. So shadows are very rarely dark single shades of colour. There we are. There is the delicate arch. Above all, I hope it's shown you how you can very easily and with a little bit of perseverance paint hot rocks in a desert scene.